Hello and welcome again. Today we shall talk about another very important classification of systems, which is time invariant versus time variant systems. Let me start with the definition. For a time invariant system, in short, TI, for a TI system, if the input x1t produces output y1t, then the input x1 t minus say capital T will produce output y1 t minus capital T. Note that this input is a delayed version of x1. So this is delayed or time shifted version of x1. Similarly, this is also delayed or time shifted by the same amount. Let us take our favorite example, which is this object on a ground and the input is the force applied on it and output is the acceleration. Or let me take speed as the output to make it more interesting. That is yt. This is input, this is output. Now if I give a input which is like this, it is 1 within a region 0 to 1. This is input. Then the output will look like this. It will start from some initial velocity and we shall assume initial velocity to be equal to 0, that is initially relaxed system, and then speed will increase like a straight line and then will become constant. This is time t equal to 1. Output versus time. Call this input as x1t, then this output is y1t. Now after we do that experiment, we will do another experiment where the input will be like this. It will start say at this point, then it will be 1 and then come down to 0. Call this point 0, this is 0.5, this is 1, this is 1.5, to so on. So this input is x1t delayed by half unit of time. Now how will the output be? Again assume the initial speed to be 0. So y0 is 0 again, and so the speed is 0. Then up to time equal to half, no force is there, so speed remains 0. From time half to time 1.5, speed will increase, and then here it will become constant. So this is how the output will be. Now you look that this output, if you call y2t, it is nothing but the previous output y1 delayed by half unit of time, same amount of delay as the input. So if you delay the input by any amount of time, output pattern will remain same, but it will only delayed, it will only get delayed by the same amount of time as the input. Such systems are called time invariant system. A very important point. Please note that we have taken the initial speed to be 0. It is important that we take the system to be initially relaxed in these tests, and also in the definition of time invariance I should add that if the input x1 applied under initially relaxed state, now you know what I mean by this abbreviation. If this input applied under initially relaxed state produces y1, then x1 t minus t applied under initially relaxed state will produce output t minus y1 t minus t. If input is delayed, output is also delayed. Okay. So let me repeat. A system is time invariant if you give a delayed input, you shall get the output also delayed by the same amount. And again, this is true only if you are considering initially relaxed system. Otherwise, this definition is not valid. Now, this word invariant means it is not dependent on time. The system property or behavior does not vary with time or does not depend on time. If you give same input at a later time of time, you shall get same output pattern at that later time. Let me give you now a counter example. Say consider a water tank on ground and we have sun here, bright sun. So water is evaporating, and now you apply force as the input and measure the speed or position or acceleration as the output. Now this is an example of a non-time invariant system. Why? Because if you apply, say, some amount of force in the early morning, you shall get some amount of acceleration. But then if you do the same test after coming back in the afternoon, by that time a lot of water is evaporated, so the weight or mass of this object is reduced, and now at the evening if you apply the same amount of force, you shall get more acceleration. So the system property or system behavior in this case depends on the absolute value of time or actual value of time. So this is not time invariant, or we call it time variant system. It varies with time. Let me remind you that we are studying system theory and we want to understand the relation between the input and output of a system. Given a system and given any arbitrary input pattern, we want to predict how the output pattern will look like. Now, the input pattern can be quite arbitrary. The different number of input patterns is innumerable, is infinite. Now, given a system, I can say that I understand this system well only if I can tell you the output for any and every possible inputs to the system. That could be sometimes very challenging, but there is a group of systems where if I know how the output will look like for only a few number of input patterns, then from that I can calculate and tell you how the output will look like for any arbitrary input pattern. That easy group or class of system is known as LTI systems. These are the less tough items for us. LTI stands for linear and time invariant systems. In short, LTI. Now, why this particular type of system is easy to deal with? Let us see that with an example. Suppose I have a LTI system which is initially relaxed and our input is given. Suppose that input looks like this. Zero, one, one. Call this particular pattern of input as x1t. So this is the input that I have given to the system, and I have measured how the output looks like. Suppose the output pattern for this input looks like this. 0, 1, here also 1. Time versus output. Call this particular pattern as y1t. So this is known to me that if you give x1t as the input, then y1t is the output. This is known or given. Then someone asks me that if I give a different input pattern, suppose that looks like this, some arbitrary pattern, say 0, 1, 2, 3, here it is 1, this height is -1, and call this arbitrary input as xt. This is arbitrary. And someone asks me that how the output pattern will look like for this particular input. So that is the question. How will I solve this problem? Notice that this arbitrary input can be broken into a sum of simpler inputs. Say I shall break this input into 3 pieces. 1, then 2, and this is the third part. 1, 2, and this is the third part. So I shall break this signal into 3 parts that I shall draw. The first part looks like this. It is this part of the signal. Then I shall add another part which looks like this. It is this part. Then 0, 0, plus the third part which will be like this. This is this part. Let me label 0, 1, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 3. So this input is the sum of these 3 components, this red, green and blue signals. They together form this input. Let me now observe that this red colored signal is nothing but this x1t. So let me write this as x1t, call this as x2t and call this as x3t. So x1t is sum of, xt, this is the sum of x1t plus x2t plus x3t. Now you also observe that x2t is a delayed or time shifted version of x1. So I can write it as x1t minus 1. Minus 1 because of this 1 unit delay. Similarly, x3t can be written as x1t minus 2 units delay from here to here, and then multiply it with minus 2 because of this minus 2 amplitude. Okay, now I will calculate the output for these three individual inputs. Let me first calculate the output for x1t, but that is already given. This is already known that for x1t the output will be like this. This is already given, 0, 1 and so on. Now how the output for x2t will look like? Note that x2t is a delayed version of x1t, and this is a time invariant system. Therefore, if you delay the input, output will also get delayed by the same amount. Therefore, you can calculate y2t corresponding to x2t by delaying this signal by an amount of 1 unit. So that will start from here and then go up and then become constant. This is the output corresponding to x2t. Call it y2t. This is same as, if I call this as y1t, then this is same as y1t minus 1, and this is true by virtue of time invariance. Time invariance of the system helps me in computing this output. Next, I shall compute the output for x3t. Now you note that x3t is a delayed version of x1t. So output will also be delayed by 2 units. So let me draw the output that will start from t equal to 2 and then it will go downwards with a slope of 2 like this and then become flat at t equal to 3. If I call this as y3t, then this is equal to y1t minus 2 delayed by 2 units and then multiplied by minus 2 because of the minus 2 here. So this is true by virtue of time invariance and homogeneity. Because of homogeneity, when you multiply the input by minus 2, output is also multiplied by minus 2. So I know the output for x1 is y1, for x2 is y2 and for x3 is y3. How will be the output corresponding to x? X is the sum of x1 plus x2 plus x3. So the output for xt will be the sum of y1 plus y2 plus y3. Let me add these three. So if I add y1, y2 and y3, that will look like this. It will first go up because of this y1. After that, because of y2, it will go up further up to time t equal to 2 and will reach a value of 2. After that it will come down because of y3 at a double rate. So it will come down to 0 at t equal to 3 and then remain at 0 ever after, because here y1 is 1, this is 1 and this is minus 2. 1 plus 1 minus 2 is 0. So this is the total output yt corresponding to this arbitrary input xt, which is sum of y1t plus y2t plus y3t. And this is true by virtue of this superposition principle. Since this system is linear, it obeys superposition principle. So what we observe is that if an arbitrary input can be broken into simpler inputs for which output is easy to calculate, then I can add those outputs to get the total or final output. Now let me introduce a new term called impulse response, or better to say an unit impulse response. What is that? Response means output. So if you take a system and give a input which is a delta function, an impulse function, so apply the input which is delta t, that is unit impulse input or excitation, then you measure the output. Or observe the output or response. Suppose the output is ht, say, then this output is called unit impulse response, because this is the response when you give unit impulse as the input. That's as simple as that. But now a very important fact. Given an LTI system, if you know how the unit impulse response looks like, then from that you can calculate the output for any arbitrary input. So the fact is, for an LTI system, if the unit impulse response, which we always denote with h of t, is known, if it is known or given, then output of any arbitrary input can be calculated from this ht. How? That is what we shall see now. Suppose we have an LTI system, and if you give delta t as the input, the output is h of t. This is known or given. Now take this same LTI system and now we shall apply some arbitrary input pattern. Suppose this is the input pattern, quite arbitrary. Now I shall break it into small slices. Okay, so what I shall do, let me chop the time axis into small slices like 0, delta t, 2 delta t, 3 delta t, here minus delta t, minus 2 delta t, and so on. Now the height of this signal at this point is x of 0, then at this point it is x of delta t, here x of 2 delta t, here x of 3 delta t, and so on. Now let me slice it from here to here, one slice, then this is another slice, then this is another slice, another slice. This side also I can carry on the same way, and so on. Now you know that when delta t tends to 0, then these individual slices, tends to impulse function, impulse signals. So they will become very narrow, concentrated at one point of time, and can be considered as a delta function. So I can write them like this. Say if you consider this part, this narrow slice, when delta t will be very small, then this can be written as a delta function multiplied by the area under this curve, and the area under this curve will be the width. Width is delta t, and then I have to multiply by the height. So let me write it here, x of 0. So this is this green part of this signal. Next, similarly, this next slice, this blue one, that can be written as, let me write it here, that will be a delta function, but this is time shifted. It will be located at time del t, so let me write t minus delta t, and the area of this curve is same as the height. Height is x of delta t multiplied by the width is delta t. That is this part. Okay, this way I can write all other parts, all other slices as some form of impulse function. They will be like this. They will be some delta t minus the time delay, like delta t or 2 delta t or 3 delta t, that is the center of these slices. In general, that I can write as n delta t. Okay, like for this n will be 3, and then I have to multiply this with the width and the height. Height is same as x of n delta t. So this signal represents one slice, one particular slice, and if I add all the slices for n equal to minus infinity to infinity, then that will give me total xt, this white colored actual signal, which I have broken into these red colored small slices. We have already seen this trick before. So this is the input. Now how will the output look like for this particular input? Okay, let us do that. Suppose this ht looks like this. Take some arbitrary pattern. I am taking a simple pattern, maybe like this. Suppose this is time versus ht. Then for this impulse, note that the actual signal is a sum of all these impulses, 1, then 2, then 3. Then to get the total output corresponding to this xt, I have to add the effect for these individual impulses. Now for this impulse, which is located at time t equal to 0, that will give an output similar to this. Let me copy it and paste it, and I shall put it here. Then I shall multiply this, its height, by the factor which corresponds to the strength or the area of this impulse, which is x0 times delta t. So I will increase the height accordingly. Then after that, I shall calculate the output for this impulse. So I shall again copy this particular pattern and paste it. Now I shall paste it at time t equal to delta t. And then again I shall multiply this by the height, by the area of this impulse function. Maybe that will be slightly larger than the previous one, like this. Okay, and that I will put at t equal to delta t. This is 0, this is delta t, then say this is 2 delta t, then this is 3 delta t, and so on. After that I have to calculate the output for this part, and that will again be similar to this impulse response. However, that will also be delayed because this impulse is at time t equal to 2 delta t. So I will again copy and paste it and put it, I will put it at time t equal to 3 delta t, and then I shall adjust the height depending on the area under this impulse. Okay, this should be at 2 delta t, yeah, and then one more I need for 3 delta t. Let me put it here and adjust the height. Like this. Okay, so this part is the output for this part. Similarly, this part is the output for this part of the input. Next, this part of the output corresponds to this part of the input, and so on. After that, you have to add all of them. That you can add yourself. Now let us do the same thing mathematically. Look at that the input is a sum of this impulse functions. So we have delta t as one component of the input. For that, the output will be ht, but not ht, because of this minus n delta t, this delay, the corresponding output will also get delayed. And then we have a multiplication factor which is multiplied to this strength of this delta t, so the output will also get multiplied by the same factor. Also another multiplicative factor is there that will also affect the output. This corresponds to the height of the input at any point, and delta t is the width of my slices, that is here. Then I have to add all of them. All the outputs correspond to all the different delta functions, and that will give me the total output. Now to be accurate, I should make these slices very narrow, so I should take the limit delta t tending to 0 on this output side also. Therefore I shall have the same limit delta t tending to 0, and therefore this summation can be turned into an integration. We have already seen this trick before. So this becomes x of, here I will use a dummy variable tau, then delta t, again the same dummy variable tau multiplied by d tau, and integrate the tau over the tau from minus infinity to plus infinity. This is xt, and the corresponding output is the integration of, write x of tau. Here I shall write h t minus tau in place of n delta t, then dt and integrate over tau equal to minus infinity to plus infinity. This is basically Riemann integration. So what do we see? We see that given arbitrary input x, if we know this function x of t, then we can calculate the output y of t by this integration. Okay, let me write. Given any arbitrary input x of t, the output of an LTI system is given by y of t equal to x of tau. X tau is already known, this is given, multiplied by h of t minus tau delta tau from minus infinity to plus infinity, where h of t is the unit impulse response, which should also be given or known. So if I know ht, if I know how the input looks like, then I can calculate the output very easily. Now I shall repeat this idea of breaking the input into smaller slices, smaller impulse functions, and calculate the output for each of the impulse and add them. I shall repeat this idea once more because this will help you to understand. Let me write the input and output in a tabular form. Suppose the input is delta t, then the output is ht. This is known or given. Then from this I can say that if the input is delayed by some amount of time tau, so this is a delay or time shift, then the output will be h t minus tau. This is by virtue of time invariance. This is only true for an LTI system. This is not true in general. If the system is LTI, then I can write for this input, output will be like this. Then if I multiply the input by some factor like this, x of tau, and also multiply another factor, d tau, then the output will also get multiplied by the same factors, x of tau and d tau. This is by virtue of homogeneity. And then finally, if I now sum over tau, integration is a kind of sum from minus infinity to plus infinity, then output will also get summed, x tau, h t minus tau, d tau. This is true by virtue of superposition because the system is linear. I hope that this table will help you to understand this formula for output for any arbitrary input. Okay, now let us write this formula once again, that output is x of tau h t minus tau d tau integrated from minus infinity to plus infinity. This is called a convolution operation. So let me write it. This is called convolution. What is convolution? Suppose you are given two arbitrary signals, call it Z1t and Z2t. Two signals, two functions of time, suppose they are given. Then let me define another function, call it what can I call, w of t, written as z1 t, or sorry, z1 tau multiplied by z2 t minus tau, and then integrate over tau from minus infinity to infinity. This new function is called the convolution of these two functions, and it is often denoted with this symbol z1t star z2t. So this is the symbol for convolution. We may also write it in this way sometime, z1 star z2, and that is a function of time. So this is the symbol of convolution. Given any two functions, their convolution is a binary operation. Take two functions and generate another function in this complicated manner, and that complicated manner is known by the name convolution. So you observe that the output of an LTI system is the convolution of the input and the impulse response. So let me write yt is the convolution of xt and impulse response. That means output of an LTI system is equal to input star means convolution, impulse response. So what does it mean? It means if I know the impulse response and if I know the input pattern, then I can calculate the output pattern by this operation. That means if I know impulse response, that is how the output looks like for impulse input, then I can calculate the output for any and every possible inputs. That is the beauty of an LTI system. That is why LTI systems are easy to deal with. And the fundamental idea behind this complicated looking formula is that you can divide the input into smaller slices, into impulse functions, and you can calculate the output for each of them and add all of them. So this is you can call that divide and conquer policy, which works for LTI system. Now today, the last thing that I shall do, I shall tell you two important properties about convolution. Two or three properties. Number one, if I have two functions z1t and z2t, if I calculate the convolution between them, z1 first and z2 next, it is same as calculating z2 convolved with z1. The order is swapped, 2 and then 1. This property is called commutative property. I shall prove it, but before that, another important property. Suppose I have three functions, say z1, z2 and z3. Then you can calculate, say, the convolution between z1 and z2 and take the result and then convolve the result with the third function. So first between z1 and z2, then the result with z3. It will be same as calculating the convolution in this way. z1, z2, z3, you calculate first between z2 and z3 and then z1 and the result of this convolution. So you can put this bracket anywhere, it doesn't matter. This is called associative property. So you can associate these terms in any way, z2 with z3 first and then z1, or associate z1 with z2 then z3, no problem, same thing. Another important property is this. If you have, say, z1 and if you calculate the convolution of z1 with z2 plus z3. So this is the sum of these two functions, then convolved with z3. This is same as like multiplication, you can do it z1 z2 first and then add z1 z3. This is like multiplication. This is called distributive property. Next, I shall just prove these theorems, and if you can prove it yourself, that will be even better. Then please do not watch this video any further and try to prove this yourself. So here are the proofs. Number 1. Suppose I start with z1t star z2t. So by definition, I have written it as Z1 tau Z2 t minus tau d tau integrated from minus infinity to plus infinity. Now I shall apply a change of variable, say put t minus tau as, call it p, so that d tau will be equal to minus dp, and also when tau is minus infinity, p is plus infinity, and if tau is plus infinity, p is minus infinity. Therefore, this left hand side I can write as this term can be written as the integration of Z1. Now in place of tau I shall write t minus p. Z2 here p in place of d tau minus dp, and the limit of integration will become plus infinity to minus infinity. Now we can use this minus sign to swap the limit of integration, and that will become minus infinity to plus infinity Z1 t minus p Z2p and dp. Now this is also same as minus infinity to plus infinity. I can write Z2 first, followed by Z1 minus, Z1 of this term dp. So here t minus p and here p, but I can also write in place of p any arbitrary variable, any dummy variable, say tau, because it's a dummy variable. After integration tau will vanish, so I can do this, and this is nothing but Z2 star Z1 by definition. Okay, so that means Z1 star Z2 is same as Z2 star Z1, and the proof is so simple. Next, say, let me prove the third one first. Z1 star Z2 plus Z3. So this I can write as the integration of Z1 tau, and here I shall write Z2. Let me make it simpler. Let me first write it as Z2 plus Z3 star Z1. Because of the commutative property I can swap this order, and then I shall write it as the integration of Z2 of tau plus Z3 of tau multiplied by Z1 t minus tau d tau from minus infinity to plus infinity. Okay. If you want, let me put this bracketed things of t plus Z3t and star Z1t. Here also you can put t, you understand that. Okay, so this then can be broken into two integrations, z2 tau, z1 t minus tau d tau, this multiplied by this, that term, plus another integration z3 tau, z1 t minus tau d tau minus infinity to plus infinity. Now this is nothing but z2 star z1, and this is nothing but z3 star z1. You can put this t's here. Okay, so this is the distributive property, very simple. Now the last thing today is the proof of associative property, that is z1 star z2 whole star z3 is equal to z2 star z3 whole star z1. Let me start the proof from the left hand side. So this you can write as the convolution integration between this part and z3. So the first term z1 star z2 as a function of tau, then the second part z3 as a function of t minus tau, integrated over tau from minus infinity to plus infinity. Here it is important to consider this part z1 star z2 as a single function of time or tau. Now next I shall write it as integration over tau from minus infinity to plus infinity. Let me first write z3 t minus tau and d tau here. Then this convolution I shall expand. I shall write it as another integration of z1 tau, z2 t minus tau, d tau from minus infinity to plus infinity. Now you notice that I have two problems. One problem is that here I have tau and outside another tau, which is confusing. Therefore I shall replace this inner taus with another variable, say p and p. Anyway, this is a dummy variable. After integration it will be vanished, so name doesn't matter, so I can call it p. Second problem I have in this equation is that here the result of z1 star z2 should be written as a function of tau, but the result of this integration will become a function of t. To write it as a function of tau, let me replace t with tau. So I have renamed two variables. Tau became p and t became tau. That's all. Now next I shall write it this way. Integration over tau equal to minus infinity to plus infinity, then integration over p equal to minus infinity to plus infinity, z1, here also z1, z1p, z2 tau minus p. I shall write dp here, and then you notice that this term z3, which is outside this inner integration, can be put inside this inner integration, because this is a constant with respect to p and the inner integration is with respect to p. So I shall put it inside without any harm. So I shall write z3 t minus tau inside dp and d tau. Now I can swap the order of integration. Here I have tau and p. I shall swap it and write it this way. First integration over p and then tau. Here as well, first tau and then p. But then you see that this is a function of p. So while integrating with respect to tau, this is a constant. So I can take it outside the inner integration like this. Now let me copy this part and go to the next page. The next thing that I will do, I will apply a change of variable. Say I shall put tau minus p equal to q, which will imply that d tau is same as dq, and the limit of integration will be as follows. Tau is running from minus infinity to plus infinity, so q will run from minus infinity to plus infinity, and then I can write this as the first integration over p from minus infinity to plus infinity, z1p, followed by the second integration, but now in place of tau I shall use q running from minus infinity to plus infinity. z2 tau minus p will become q, and z3 t minus tau will become minus p plus q, so minus p minus q. Then d tau will become dq and dp as it is. Now let me just put a bracket here so that you can observe that this part is nothing but the convolution between z2 and z3. z2 of q times z3 of something minus q dq. So this is nothing but z2 star z3, but this is not a function of time. This will be a function of this t minus p. Okay, so this is this inner part, and then the outer part is Z1P integrated over dP, P from minus infinity to plus infinity. Now you observe that this is convolution between Z1 and this term. This is nothing but Z1 star this term Z2 and Z3 together. Here you consider this Z2, Z3 as one function, single function of t minus p. So this is becoming Z1 star Z2 plus Z star Z3. And this will be a function of time, because here I have time t. So it will be a function of t. So we started from Z1 star Z2 star Z3 and finished with Z1 outside and Z2 Z3 together. So it is proved. Thank you and have a very nice day.